My brother's got
everybody has started the same time. So, where do they go?
You turn in your that survey on this. You gave me
We usually go, I have to go to the for that Tigers conference. And it's usually like Monday, Tuesday, and then that following weekend, there's the draw there, so I always with the weather and stuff like that, it's like, that's all kind of usually.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. Let's get our meeting started. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. We've got just a couple of agenda items, mostly for discussion at this point. We need the sign-in sheet to go around. Please be sure and sign in. Also, if you haven't turned in the survey I mailed to everyone, I'd appreciate it if you get those back to me when we can get through with them. Trying to compile all that information to have it ready for our November meeting. First item of business is roll call. Madam Secretary, would you handle that?
Mr. Joel,
Here.
Gary Walsh,
Here.
Richard Johnson, Linda Johnson, here. Ray Russell,
Here.
Mr. Coy Dickey, Mary Ann Baker, here. Mr. Whitaker,
Here.
and I think Mr. Burton will be a little bit late.
Okay, I think that constitutes a quorum. Can conduct business. First item of business was the minutes from the previous meeting on May 9th. You have those in front of you. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Yes, Ms. Baker.
I make a motion to approve.
A motion to approve the minutes. Have a second from Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Thank you. I wasn't showing any old business carried forward from any previous meetings. I think the main item of business we had at the last meeting was looking over the sheriff's budget, which I think was approved, was it not, Sheriff? And through the county commission, pretty much as we left it in this committee.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. Have a couple of items of new business. I'd like to talk a little bit about them if you let me pontificate from the chair a bit. Under new business, noise ordinance review and recommendations. We've had an issue arise on our noise ordinance, particularly with Keller's Bar and Grill down at the county line. They built a outdoor seating area, and they've had some bands a few nights a week out there. Several of the neighbors have complained, taken issue with this. And going over our noise ordinance, which you have in front of you, this is the one that's current, most current that we could find. This was adopted back in '06. I don't think it adequately addresses this issue. It's more a disturbing the peace and things like horns and shooting guns and cars and things of that nature. Only item K probably could apply to this. It says noises to attract attention, which that's really not the purpose of this. But it says the use of drums, loudspeakers, and instruments. That's why I say that's the only thing that I see in here that somewhat applies. And I'm going to ask our county attorney if I misspeak or there's something he needs to interject, to please stop me and throw it in. It's a bit vague. It's a bit vague in this situation. It makes it almost impossible to enforce adequately. Number one, it doesn't adequately define noise. or at what level it would be considered noise or disruptive. I think that there's got to be a way that both parties can be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reasonably
Compromise,
Yeah.
mutual understanding.
Yeah, come to an understanding or at least we're going to have to be a little bit more definitive in our ordinances as to what an acceptable level is or isn't. And we've been looking at ordinances from other jurisdictions, trying to see how others handle this. And from what I've found, I've not been able to find a great deal. I've had one provided to me by one of the neighbors, and I've looked at a couple of other jurisdictions myself. Have you been able to look into this much?
I did. As a matter of fact, one of when we want to go to a source, a lot of times we'll go to MTAS or CTAS, and I went to some of the MTAS, and the ordinance we have is basically modeled off of a sample from MTAS. This is what they would recommend for us. So I didn't think that gave us a lot of guidance for the situation.
So I think the thing that we're going to have to do, in my opinion, is to do a little bit more research into this as to what other jurisdictions do, how they handle it, before we can come to any conclusions on it. I apologize for not having all that information available tonight, but it's, like I said, what I've been able to find so far has been pretty limited, and to the degree it's about as vague as this, because they're all modeled after this. You know, they almost read word for word for what we've got. And I know this has been an issue before, not necessarily the same situation with loud bands or that sort of thing. More restaurants and bars that have outdoor seating areas and gathering areas. There are others that this has come up before. And I don't want to make Mr. Keller feel like he's been singled out in any way, because this has been an ongoing issue. We get numerous complaints for loud mufflers and loud engines and all sorts of things like that. Barking dogs, and it's just hard to know where you draw the line. And I think evidently that's what we're going to do, is try to come up with what an acceptable level is. I know we have been down there at times with decibel meters and done decibel readings on the roads, pointing the instruments toward the roadways, toward his establishment, and at that point in time, it was not any louder than the road noise that was coming from the traffic. You know, I can't testify to other times as to whether it was or wasn't, but I understand the neighbors want peace and quiet in their residential neighborhood. And the only thing I can say at this point is we're just going to have to look at this a lot more. If you have any input, if you have read any ordinances or seen anything, please bring them to us. Yes?
Let me mention on National 11.12.070. That's how what their noise ordinance is.
Okay, it's what now?
11.12.070.
Can you elaborate on it as to how it would be different from ours?
It talks about, operator allow operation of any sound amplification equipment so as to create sounds that are plainly audible from the boundary line of the residentially occupied property. And It goes on about apartment complexes, condominiums, and it also gives definition of what sound amplification equipment is, radio, tape player, compact disc, digital audio, television, electronic audio equipment, musical instruments, sound amplifier, and other mechanical electronic sound making devices. So it goes into some detail about how it doesn't go into dBs or footage, but it's just like the nearest residential area.
But it does not give a noise level, a meter noise level or anything.
Only because if you're out in the middle of a cornfield, it's 50 acres, you can place something in the middle of it and not hear it at the end. So if you're next door to a house, then of course your loud music is going to annoy somebody that's a close neighbor, more so than out in the middle of a cornfield. What we use at Metro Police is basically a 50-foot rule for car stereos. We can hear plainly within 50 feet that it's too loud. That's our gauge.
That's with moving vehicles or
Moving vehicles or stationary vehicles in the parking lot.
cars.
Sheriff, do you have any input on this?
No, we've never been down there myself and done any type of testing or anything. That's always been about in my realm of work.
Mayor, have you looked into this at all? I know you've looked at our existing ordinances.
I looked into it, and the only thing I can find that sets how many decibel is in the national code. I think it's in a different section than the one Mr. Walsh regularly talked about. And I think it has to do with construction equipment and all this stuff. It's different from just the general excessive noise ordinance the national has. And I'm just looking through it right now, and I don't see, as you said, I don't see any specific decibel reading, but I'm seeing it.
They have multiple ordinances. One, like the mayor's talking about, is about construction, where like at midnight they gotta stop it.
Right.
Nashville become Crane City, so to speak.
Well, as we become more populated, I think issues like this are going to be more apparent, and I think that we're going to need to absolutely address this. I think it's going to be hard to find the compromise of what's acceptable to one person may not be acceptable to the next person, but we're going to have a standard to be able to measure it by. Or it's going to be purely subjective, and we can't make laws that are purely subjective and expect people to abide by them. I know the neighbors say it's too loud. Mr. Keller thinks it's not too loud. It is the operation of his business. I see his side, I see their side. I see both sides. And I just think we're going to have to look into this a lot more than we have. And I would appreciate your input to myself or the county attorney or the mayor in his office. If you find something addressing this or you have strong feelings on this one way or the other. Have you dealt with this in previous places?
No, sir, sure haven't.
Well,
Mr. Keller, please go ahead.
We've been friends for a long time, we're our neighbors. I called him and tried to work it out with him and asked him what times they felt was normal for them or not normal. So I cut the stuff out at 10 o'clock through the week. I think we need to talk about that. And then on the weekends on the band, on Saturday, I cut it out at 12 o'clock. And we had a decimal reader out there after they claimed the second time. So we go to the mailbox and read the decimal level. It's a 65. It's 0 at the county line, 0 at the four-way. And I keep cutting it down even more, trying to get it down to 60. I mean, a tractor is at 89. A semi coming through there's way more louder than my band. We hear semis daily at nighttime. Ambulances coming through here at nighttime waking me up. We got tractors over in the field plowing at 3 o'clock in the morning. I can hear them in my house. I mean, that's just my point. And I'm not trying to be ugly about it.
Like I
I'm
say,
I'm friends with these people. I mean, we've been friends with them a long time. I'm just here to save my business. I'm here to make money for the county. And I spent $90,000 out there on that business this year. And that's a commercial area. We either have a marble plant and granite plant come across the street from us. They're going to be cutting granite over there. Then we got another place across that's going to be working on semis at nighttime. They're going to be working on ranches. I guarantee they're going to hear that. That's just my input on that part of it.
Well, I think in the conversations that Mr. Keller, the thing that he said to me that most made sense is what level is acceptable? And I can't answer that. Our ordinance can't answer that at this point. That's simply what I'm trying to say is we're going to have to
Research.
come up with defining what is acceptable and what's not. I'm half deaf. What's acceptable to me is probably a lot lower than what would be acceptable to someone that can hear well. So I understand the situation, but y'all want to speak, please? Just tell us who you are.
Jana Sullivan, we live right across the road from Keller, and we did have a conversation, but the problem is, it is way louder than what he is trying to say to you all. I would suggest that maybe you all can do a reading, because when we lay in bed at night, we can hear every word to every song. When your 4-year-old goes to bed at night and asks you if Kendall's going to have a band on because it's going to wake him up, then that's a problem. So anyone that has kids, and they were there when we moved there, and for 5 years we lived there, we have never had any problems, we've never bothered them, they've never bothered us, they did their thing, we did their thing. And, you know, he says to me before, we were there before you, yes, you were, but at that time you didn't have the music outside your, facility. So we never had any issues with them until the music came outside. And it is an issue. And I agree. What's acceptable to him and what's acceptable to me whenever you've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old in your home trying to sleep, midnight is too late to me. They've been in bed for 4 hours by then. So, yeah, there is going to be some issues in trying to find what works for one person may not work for the other.
Thank you. I guess this became an issue when you did the outside seating area, and I know that when you first talked to me when I was building official, it was to be an outdoor seating area. I don't know that there was any conversations about it having a band out there. I thought it was to be an outdoor seating area primarily for the smokers, and I know that's primarily what you did it for. I can understand you wanting to have entertainment out there, and we'll just try to nail down what these levels or what the hours can be that will work. Hopefully.
Well, I like that when they do it next year, there's not even going to be a band out there on the patio next year. It's just going to be strictly karaoke. And I think we talked about that before. We can't hear karaoke out there on the patio. So that's all going to be out there next year anyway.
Okay.
The band will just experiment to see if it's going to work or not.
Okay. So you plan on not having bands out
There won't be
there?
another band unless there's a concert. It'll be over by 10 o'clock at night.
And that would just be a special event
Maybe once
occasion?
a year thing.
Well, I think we still need to look at this and try to nail this down a little bit more, don't you, Sharon? And then we can better know where, because we're going to have this issue, I think, come up other places other times. My thing. Yes, sir.
Have you received the nuisance law that was passed in another county? I sent it to the mayor and some of the other commissioners. And the county, the neighboring county had the same problem. They passed a law allowing law enforcement to enforce noise ordinances instead of it just being an ordinance, it's a law. I don't know if you received that.
Yes, you sent me a copy of that. I have looked at that. I'm just trying to find other information from other sources as well, other jurisdictions particularly, that are our size and more specific to us. But that's what we're wanting to look at.
Is that something possible, maybe we can look into trying to do?
Yeah, possible.
Well, basically, we have ordinance that just don't really define.
Right.
It's too subjective.
They don't
And it really doesn't-
For the law to enforce it, so there has to be better
Yeah,
ordinance.
it doesn't address entertainment type venues, and that's what we need to look at. But if it's okay with the body, I think we just need to do a little bit further research on this and bring it up at our next meeting. If we have recommendations, we'll go from there. And if you find information, please share it with us. That would be nice. Unless there is a motion to do something tonight, I think that's the way we need to proceed with it.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we continue researching into this topic for later date.
We have a motion by Commissioner Walsh and a second by Commissioner Johnson to do further research into the matter and bring it up at a further date. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. Motion carries. We will do further research. And like I say, please, please, if you can find information, share it with us. Next item of business, we have been brought to our attention and asked to look into an obvious dispute between the sheriff's department and the director of schools and or the school board about the SRO post at the high school. I know there's been much correspondence back and forth with the mayor's office, the county attorney, and I believe Dr. Satterfield. I've talked to Dr. Satterfield at length about this. I have talked to the sheriff about this, the mayor and the county attorney. First thing I'd like to say, I don't think this is any of our business. This is between the sheriff's department and the school board. And I think they are both more than capable of coming to an agreement on this and working out their differences themselves. But we've been asked to look at it because of our role and because of our role in setting up this SRO situation, and that we do fund it. So looking at it from that standpoint, I guess you could say that we do have a dog in the fight, but I really think it's something that needs to be worked out from them. The issue is when the SRO has been pulled off of his post at the high school particularly to go to a mandatory required training. That decision, everybody agrees, Dr. Satterfield agrees, that decision is the sole decision of the sheriff as to whether he needs to be at this training or not. But that post is left without an officer during that time. So my understanding is the director of schools wanted that time directed from the pay, where they split the pay 50-50. And as far as the building, and went so far as asked the mayor's staff to change the invoice, to change the building, to reflect the hours that the officer was not there, that he was a trainer. Number one, that request should have never been made. Number one, we don't change invoices. It's not up to those ladies to change an invoice because one of the parties says they want to change. So that's about all I can say about that. Do you agree with me on that point?
Yes, sir.
The Dr. Satterfield did to me indicate that he understood that the training was necessary. He didn't dispute that. He didn't even dispute paying his half of the officer while he was at training. He indicated to me that he was most upset about the officer not being at that post and not being notified ahead of time that they were going to be gone or how long they were going to be gone. So I don't know what the resolution to this is, but I really think the resolution needs to be between the sheriff and the school. I can see both sides of this, but I don't see that we should be involved in it. If y'all think we should, we'll address it. Mr. Kirk.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Satterfield told me you would be representing the school board on this tonight. Did I lay that out adequately? Do you have more that you want to say?
Well, I would have probably phrased it just a tad different than you did
Okay.
with paying someone for 12 hours that wasn't there. That I would think the county at any point in time would have an issue with paying anyone that's supposed to be at work with no replacement for time not served on post. Or in other words, didn't show up. You are correct, though, and my opinion, the biggest issue is nobody ever notified us that the dude wasn't going to be there. He just didn't show up. The principal didn't know where he was, didn't know if he'd been in a car wreck or whatever. Just, wasn't there. And that's kind of hard to,
That's the first I've heard
that.
that.
That's why somebody just can't pick up the phone and call and say, you guys going for training? And then we could have worked something out. I would say
That's the first I've heard that. Nothing tonight, right now, it's the first time I've heard that. He's supposed to let the principal know all of them are, if they're gonna be absent or anything going on, if they're sick, they're supposed to call the principal and let them know. I can check on that and find out for sure.
I think that can adequately be addressed. Now, Dr. Satterfield did agree to me that he felt like if he was in necessary training, that
He's
y'all
supposed
would
to
be,
let the principal know.
that y'all would be fine paying your half of when he was in training.
you're exactly right.
Okay, so whether he's on the post or he's in training, you're still paying him this time, so the invoice will be the same. So I don't understand why you would want to deduct the 12 and then say we're going to add that half of that back. I mean, it's the same dollar amount.
I believe the first bullet point on our contract with the sheriff's department states that they will provide a full-time officer there, and nobody was there. I understand the training. Nobody's got a problem in the world with training. That just makes them a better employee for the school system, for the sheriff's department. The training is immaterial. That's not an issue. I think the issue is that just like if a teacher can't show up for work, we get a substitute.
Yeah, we don't have substitute deputies. I just can't pull one off the road and slap a gun on him and send him down to the school. It's a lot more complicated than the school system is. I wish I could just go there and say, Dwight, I want you to substitute at school for me today, give you a gun and send you down there. But I can't do that. They got to be a certified law enforcement officer. And when we have that training, I got 7 deputies doing that training at one time. I got 2 more directing school traffic on the highways. That's 9 employees I've got tied up, and I count the others that's answering calls. Over half my department is working in that 4-hour period during training. And I'm running 2 officers short right now. And I just don't have the staff to do everything that people want me to do. And if they want to substitute SRO, we do like some of these other counties, they got a float SRO, and some of these bigger schools got more counties. That way if somebody's out, he can go to those other schools. I never once said I'd ever take anybody out of my department and send them to a school when somebody was out. That was never mentioned at all in our talks and agreements.
Well, I do think that there is a hole in the agreement that does not address this one way or the other. And would you like to speak to the agreement?
If that was the situation, I never would even agree to it. I can't pull my officers off the road and send them to schools every time one's out. I had one out 2 weeks ago, had a 2 pulled, then I had one out 2 days last week. I sent one of my officers to a football game. They had to pay in time, half overtime, which added up to $200-something. I had to pay for my budget just to go to a ball game. And I don't think that's right, but I've done it. They requested it.
Well, I think that there's been a long-standing relationship between the school board and the sheriff's department. I know that the sheriff's department has provided a lot of services to the school board. I think everybody.
We still do every week.
That are not billed or not reimbursed. I think everybody's aware of that. And I don't want to see a dispute over a few hours jeopardize that relationship between the school board and the sheriff's department. So that, I think this is something that y'all should be able to work out, but I want to go back to my question to the council here is, Do you see anything in this agreement that in any way addresses this situation?
It's fairly vague, a lot of the agreement is, and I think more importantly than just the agreement itself is just the communication points that are necessary. If there's something that needs to be refined in an agreement of any kind, as opposed to going through mayor's office or anybody else, I understand the school board has maybe their own counsel, and if it's just a little simple matter that needs to be addressed that we can tweak, I'm sure I could communicate with the sheriff. We can iron things out where it flows smoothly. We all recognize that the advent of the 21st century through Columbine and other things, it's becoming a necessity. Every year the General Assembly, they adjust SRO issues. We see more and more. I think the school now has a law enforcement grant that is utilized for the possibility of maybe even hiring private security services to fill the holes that law enforcement, quite frankly, may not be able to do at all time. And I understand what you said about a full-time employee and whatnot. Well, that's you've got a full-time employee. He was just on training at that point. And I think there was just maybe some form of misunderstanding of that. These are issues that can be readily cleaned up. If they need to be cleaned up, it's obviously something that's between the sheriff's office and the school that I think can be done fairly simply through maybe better modes of communication, a more refined writing, if that's what it takes. And just, that's my thought process on it.
I didn't know anything about this until I got an invoice.
Right, and I understand.
It should have been brought to my attention times, for now, if he's not communicating.
Commissioner Wall?
Or is this a one-time incident we're referring to?
I believe it went several days. Ray probably would know that.
It's 2 hours twice a month.
Right. My understanding when we went through all this with the budget and everything between the schools and the sheriff's department, one of the two reasons we were getting patrol cars for the middle school and elementary school, number one, visibility, deterrence out front. And the second part was that there was an SRO absent for whatever reason, and that school that has the absent SRO had an issue. Another SRO from one of those two schools could go down there and take the
That's what we're
report
going to do.
or whatever. So I know Metro Nashville being an SRO for 22 years, that's not an issue. We have officers out all the time. And another school just fills them in if they need police, whether it be report writing or if they got a gut feeling something's going to happen, pull them down there. Being an isolated incident, I mean, the 40 hours a week in-service or 40 hours a year in-service training is part of the job. You have to go through recertification every year, another training. Yeah, I think that from what I just heard and found out about this is blown out of proportion for one thing. I mean, it should have been more instead of a billing issue, why did this happen? And the department head should have got together, Dr. Satterfield and the sheriff.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it.
Exactly, before this came to this. I mean, to me, it went a little further than what it should have. But there's an understanding as a whole purpose of getting in patrol cars and spending that money was to have them SROs mobile in case they had to go somewhere else. And God forbid there's a mass shooting, you got an active killer in the school. Hopefully the SROs will be the first ones going. They're listening to the radio, they're going to go there. That's one of the reasons why. And there are going to be absentees, whether it's sickness, death in the family, or training. It's going to happen. That's one of the downfalls you have when the school board pays part of the salary. They think they own the officer, and I understand their point too. They got a big dog in the fight. They got a $75,000 dog in that fight. But that's one of the downfalls of having that set up that way. But all that was talked about during all these budget hearings, and we was trying to get the SROs in there, why the cars were, what the role of it. I'm guessing we have a MOU between the sheriff's department and them.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, maybe it needs to be a little more defined and worked out, but I think it's reached a level that it should not have reached so far. From what I'm hearing. I mean, why has it got to that level for the isolated incident? Even though it might be a couple of days, it's still the same thing. So I think maybe they can go back to it and talk about it and come to a resolution like you're saying. I don't think we, the committee, need to get involved in that right now.
That we were asked because we were asked to change invoices, and that's how we wound up in this. But I don't expect us to take any action as this committee, other than making you aware, because we are the funding body, and we did approve this before it ever got done, is why I felt it necessary to bring it to our committee. Mr. Kerr?
The other thing that I like to say, Mr. Chairman, is we have a great relationship with Ray and his department. Nobody is knocking that, and we want to keep that. The biggest issue, as I said before, was the communication issue. And I think as long as, I think Clint and Ray had talked. I mean, Clint indicated to me that he and Ray had already talked about this issue. And I don't know the substance of it, but he told me that they had spoken. But I feel like that, and again, I'm just one member of the board, but I feel like that it's not as much the money issue as it is the communication issue. And I think once Dr. Satterfield and Ray can work that out, I don't see a lingering issue. I agree 100% with what Mr. Walsh said. Every employee has to have time off for certain things, and we can do that with the officer from the middle school.
That's what we've been doing.
Elementary school or something, but that can't be done if we don't know there's not anybody there. You know, the communication part.
Yeah, what we've been doing is whenever he's out for those 2 hours, we have the middle school officer to go down to the high school during that 2-hour time period, just go through. That's what they're supposed to be doing.
Are they staying the full 2 hours, or are they
No.
just going back and
No,
forth?
he's
They
just
put
going
in
back
the
and
parents
forth.
and
I've got
stay
to
20, 30 minutes and put in the parents, walk the grounds, and then go back to the other post, and then they're kind of,
Then I've got another
back and
officer
forth.
directing traffic right in front of the high school up to 8 o'clock. And the middle school officer is supposed to be going down there and doing a walkthrough the same way we used to do before we had 3 SROs. The high school SRO would go down to middle school and do a walkthrough.
And we think that's fine. I believe the board would say that's fine. I mean, even a phone call, you know, the middle school officer could call the principal. Do you have anything going on? You know, okay, I'll probably be down there within an hour, 30 minutes, something to make an appearance, that type of
They're
thing.
supposed to be doing that. I'll check on it and make sure, but
Well, and that's, I know as a former SRO, last Friday, when I was going to be out, I did let my principal know, hey, I got this training, I'm not going to be here tomorrow for whatever reason the case may be. So I think what this turned into is more of a housekeeping issue for Sheriff Russell to find out why that wasn't communicated, if it wasn't, between the SRO and that principal.
I agree.
they're supposed to be doing that.
well, let's leave it at that. Y'all try to broaden your communications and make sure everybody's on the same page. And I think we understand the situation. I think we understand both sides of the situation, and I think we're justified in our reluctance to,
I see no reason for this committee to make any kind of recommendation.
well, that's good, because we're not going to.
I didn't know you could speak for everybody else, Mr. Chairman.
It's called acquiescence by silence.
Is any other business tonight? Yes,
I
Mr.
make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to
I
adjourn.
think Mr. Dickey had something. He's going to
I'm
say
sorry.
earlier.
Did you have something else, Mr. Dickey?
Yes, I want to say something. All the conversation I'm hearing, the leadership failed to communicate between the two, and it should not have been brought up. I mean, between the two leaderships should solve the problem.
It got brought to us because we were requested to change the invoices in the billing, and with the billing comes through us. That's why.
I've got a question. Did the school board know? My question is, he's asked for 12 hours, but then the training is only 2 hours?
A day, for several days.
So this has happened.
So it was a total of
He
12 hours.
waited until it became 12 hours before?
It was a total of 12 hours.
Okay.
I
But he
believe-
didn't mention it, he didn't have an issue with it until,
The way he explained it to us,
That's what I
the way he explained it to me was that the high school principal, Ms. Dickerson, called him, I don't know how many days after this had happened, and said, are you aware that our SRO is missing on Mondays? Right.
and then after the first time, or when that
I don't know
first
how
happened,
many
you don't
times
know
that
how many
happened
times.
before she notified
Okay.
Mr.
I think that's what it is. It's just the leadership. Like, it
I
seems
agree.
like to me, we should have called in and said, look what's happening.
Just like any
Instead of-
employee.
Right,
Right.
right.
I think at that point, it was the 12 hours. That's what I'm understanding at that point, that had been missed. So,
I would say on the officer's behalf, that he was aware that whoever schedules their time with the department knew. And so he just figured everybody knew.
right.
It would be my opinion, had no substance of that, but I would just think that's what happened.
Right.
We have a motion to adjourn. And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Hey, Sheriff,
Thank you very much.
whatever you do your training down at the high school, you let the principal know they're not gonna be in.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever not told them that you weren't gonna be there?
I told her every Monday.
Okay, you always tell her that you're not gonna be there at all.
I'll make sure she knows that, Ben Johnson was.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
What did he say?